I didn't know the band Looking Glass, that Elliot, songwriter, you're from Brooklyn, because I grew up in Canarsie.
Coney Island.
Right by each other, Luna Park. I know it very well.
Very close. That I grew up in Brooklyn, and I was in bands starting in high school, and we were, even one of them. I think when I was 15 or 16, we did some demos for Capitol Records. So, I was always playing, and I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey, in New Brunswick, and I was there for one semester, and I dropped out, and I was doing really pretty well as a sideman in the city.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing both bass and guitar, and I was doing quite well. And I didn't really want to go back to school. I thought I was off to a good start, but it was 1968, and I was classified 1A to go off to Vietnam, which I was not too keen on doing.
Wow.
So that went back to Rutgers and re-enrolled there, and met the guys who became Looking Glass. Two of them were fellow students at Rutgers in New Brunswick. The fourth one went to Rider College nearby. Band went through a couple of different permutations before it wound up as the four guys who made the record. And basically we were like a cover band that was popular in the area. We played all the fraternity parties. We played all the local bars and stuff. We'd do 5-6 sets a night of cover stuff. And then we started writing, and we would sneak in a couple of original songs into each set.
Yeah.
And we were, a very popular local band in central New Jersey. So we graduated, the three of us who were in the same graduating class, the class of 1970. And we said, we're doing pretty well with this. So we've got our diplomas now. So if we have to get real jobs and give up music, we have those in our back pocket. So why don't we give it a little bit of time and see if we can make anything real out of this? So we rented a farmhouse way out in northwestern New Jersey. I don't know if you're familiar with that area. It's called Hunterdon County, New Jersey, out near the Pennsylvania border. Really pretty, bucolic, very rural. And we found this house out there, and it had 3 bedrooms upstairs. 3 of the 4 of us lived there, and a big living room downstairs, a big kitchen with a potbelly stove. We set all the gear up down in the living room, and we lived upstairs. And like during the week, we would write and rehearse and make demos on a little TAC 4-track recorder. And on the weekends, we would go out and play gigs to make the rent. And we did that for about 8 or 9 months. And somehow or another, I don't even remember exactly how, we met a guy who was in the music business from the West Coast, and he had migrated back to the East Coast. And he asked to manage us, and we said, okay. And he took us up, he had a house up in Saugerties, New York. We went up there and we made some more demos. And finally he got them to Clive Davis, and we did a showcase for Clive Davis at the Cafe A Go-Go. Remember that, down in Westville?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And we did a showcase there, and he liked it well enough to sign us. So he signed us to Epic Records. I think we actually opened for Buddy Guy that night.
No way.
And we did like a 20-minute set, 30-minute set. Just, it was really basically just so he could hear, our stuff. So we did all originals in that set.
So the pressure was on. Guys going, okay, hey guys.
Yeah, it was a weeknight. The club wasn't very crowded, and you could see Clive sitting there at his table by himself, and this was like the big showcase. But he came back afterwards, and he said, I like you guys. Let's do it. Let's sing.
Somebody's actually staring at you, but it's different when the crowd's, getting into the music. It's just the pressures. It's like taking a test. Oh my God, that's how I look at it. But
I don't recall that we were really under that much pressure. I think we already knew that he was pretty interested. We knew that we could play the songs that had interested him pretty well. And we were excited to be playing at the Cafe A Go-Go with Buddy Guy, so it was cool.
Totally. The history, just the history of that alone. Right. Now, when you did the showcase, did you have Brandy that was written already? That was already done under the under your hat, you had that in the wings. So right away, he must have heard that and go,
That was the song. Yeah, he always identified that as being the hit song.
that was the hit song. It just gravitated. I mean, it's such an epic song. It really, because it's like it's almost poetry. It's a story, and in your head, you're just visioning. Like I would think of that song, and the neighborhood in Brooklyn, because I'd hang out Canarsie Pier, so I'd always go with my boombox by Canarsie Pier with Brandy, Your Fine Girl, and I had my mom's 45, and I'd make my own cassettes, and I'd walk down and just vision this story about Brandy and the sailors and this whole epic thing. Is this true now? And correct me and correct Wikipedia, because YouTube, everything out there gets watered down. The first version, were you working with Steve Cropper on this one?
Yeah, what happened was Clive signed us and we had to pick a producer.
Yeah.
And he suggested that we go down to Memphis and record with Steve Cropper. And we were very excited about that. I mean, we were big fans of his, big admirers of his. So we did. We went down to Memphis and we cut 4 songs with him, one of them being Brandy. And it was a little strange going down there, though, because just so happened that exactly when we went down to Memphis to record with him, race riots were breaking out in Memphis. It was, I think, 1960. Probably 1970, 71, 70, I guess. So we were not allowed to go, there were curfews. So we were only allowed to go between the hotel and the studio. So we were in Memphis for a week. We didn't see anything of Memphis other than the inside of the studio and the inside of a Holiday Inn. But we did the 4 tracks with them and we enjoyed doing them. We were happy with the way they were going. And we went back to New York and we had a meeting with Clive and we played the 4 tracks. And on listening to him in his office, I think we all agreed that it sounded like a very well recorded, very good bar band, but it didn't sound like a hit record. So we wanted a hit record. So we abandoned those tracks and went further.
What was it missing when you listened to it?
It's just, I mean, Brandy is an interesting record. It's a pretty slick record. Yet it's not as slick as some of the other pop records back then. So it still sounds kind of like a real band. And we were very fortunate to get that kind of vibe. His stuff was too much on the real band side and not enough on the slick side. So we had to get it a little slicker, but not too much,
Yeah.
The arrangement was a little different when we did it.
It was. We
didn't have all the overdubs of the horn section and that real tricky intro that we came up with later on. That wasn't on that record.
Yeah.
So it just, it didn't have that hit magic. And, when you listen to a record, if you, you compare it to other things on the radio, you could say, I don't hear that being on top 40 radio the way it was at that point.
Yeah. It's funny because it's one of those songs you could pick up just to play it bar chord. It's still a hit to me, whatever, if it's just stripped down to nothing, just in a, it's just such a great melody.
We'll never know if that version had been released, if it would have been a hit, but I didn't think it sounded like a hit. And most importantly, Clive didn't think it sounded like a hit.
The main guy.
He thought it was a hit song, but he didn't think it sounded like a hit record the way it came out.
Do you still have any copies of the Steve version that you guys did in your archives?
I may have one on a reel-to-reel tape, which if it got baked and transferred might be listenable, but I don't have access to one. No.
It sounds it stands the test of time.
All of those little special sauces came together in a magical way to make a record that has stood the test of time pretty well. The other thing is, if you look on Spotify, I made CBS do it, or now Sony. They only had the album mix up there. And the single mix, which was on the radio, is not only a slightly different mix, but it's also sped up just a little bit. So if you try to play along with it, it's like in the key of E plus, because it's like a little sharp.
A little sharp.
We just did it the old speed up way where you just ran the tape recorder a little more quickly. So it's like it's like a quarter tone sharp and just a little faster than the album version. And my voice is just like slightly less baritone on the single.
I want to ask you, and I know you probably talk about all the time, So was Brandy, was it somebody in the band? Was it a girl? I heard stories about a girl named Randy. What's the real story?
No, I've told the story many times.
Yeah.
It's still true. I had a girlfriend in high school. Her name was Randy, Randye. And when I would write, I still do it that way. I sort of strum until I find a progression of some things that I think are working, and I'll just free associate and sing nonsense words over it. And I was singing her name. And then when the story started to come together, I said, well, Randy's going to be a problem because, first of all, it's a name that could be either male or female. And the character is a barmaid, so it should be Brandy. That'll really work. And that was the only connection to a real person. The rest of it is all made up.
It's all made up. What a fantastic story. You know, the bar, was there a bar in mind in Brooklyn that you were thinking of?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Just totally imagined.
She hears them say,